Hi folks, and welcome to the first of 3 videos today. Yes, I'm bringing out 3 World of Tanks videos, but if you get sick of my voice, don't blame me, blame Wargaming, because yesterday they released the Berlin 3.0. 3 new premium tanks added to the game, and unfortunately, here in the EU, we got done, because if you're on other servers, you get the Berlin Quartet, you get 4 new tanks, but here in the EU, we're missing the IS-122. So we only got the IS-2, the Cromwell B, and the Rudy T-3485, but I bought the packages, sat down very late last night, and ended up playing all 3 tanks. Played over 10 games in all 3 tanks, so it was a very late night, early morning gaming session for me, but I wanted to get the videos out. I'm sure you're waiting to see these tanks in action. Now, this is my very first game in the IS-2, and it was an ace tanker, so pretty happy with this one. It was the first of the tanks I played after buying them, and yeah, it was a pretty good game. But I hadn't played the IS-2 or even the Russian IS in a long time. When I originally played the IS, it was a couple of months after starting to play World of Tanks. I was still a very new player, and I probably didn't appreciate the tank, but I do remember I enjoyed it. But I sold it in order to move on to the IS-3 as quickly as possible, because back then I didn't know what I was doing, and I was rushing to get to tier 10 thinking it was endgame. But so it was very nice to be able to play the IS-2, which is basically the same tank as the in-game IS. I would love to go into a lot more detail, but I'm going to be saving that for a review, because this is a tier 7 tank, which means it's going to get reviewed sooner rather than later. But there aren't very many major differences between this tank and the IS, or even the Chinese IS-2. Probably the most obvious difference, other than the fact it's got an absolutely gorgeous looking model. I think the HD model looks absolutely fantastic. But basically the most, well, probably the most important change here is if you look at the upper front plate here. Let's get rid of the UI, you can see that we're actually sloped. It's actually a sloped upper front plate. Now, this, according to the documentation for this tank, is supposed to be 120 millimeters thick. However, in-game stats show it's only 100, but because it's sloped, it actually is quite more effective than the frontal armor on an IS. So even though the IS gets 120 millimeters and this on paper has 100 millimeters, because of that sloping, I think the armor performs either the same or maybe even a little bit better. You've still got the traditional weak spot on front of the IS, the driver's hatch here, but it's not as big. Well, it is as big, but it's not as pronounced. It's not as flat as it is on the regular IS. But really, other than the HD model and some sloping here, it's basically the same tank. Now, I did actually go into more detail, and as I say, I don't want to go into too much detail because that is for the review. This is just my first impressions of the tank, but I did go into a little bit more detail because I wanted to see how balanced the tanks were compared to each other. So I compared the IS-2, the new Russian tank added, the IS, the original Russian tank, and the IS-2 from China, the Chinese version. And what I did was I basically broke down all the major stats here. And if the tank was the best in its category, it got a 1. If it was middle in its category, it got a 2, and if it was the worst in its category, it got a 3. So I put down what I felt were the most important stats here. There are some stats missing, there are some hidden stats missing, but these are the main ones. And basically I gave each tank a rating based on the stat as we know it, and as you can see, the IS-2 came out with a score of 23, and basically the lower the score, the better. The IS came out with 21, and the IS-2, as I always suspected, is not quite as good as the IS for Russia, and it came out with a score 25. So on paper, the tanks, the IS is still in the lead. But when we take out a couple of minor statistics, for example, the signal range, the IS-2 for the new IS-2 for Russia has the worst signal range, but signal range really isn't that important in a brawler. So if we were to ignore signal range and the fire chance, the chance of fire for the tank is actually worse It's the worst for the IS-2 Russia, but only by 3%. It's a very small margin to be considered the worst. If we were to take out, for example, those two stats, the IS-2 and the IS balance equally. They're both almost identical as regards their stats, and the IS-2 still falls slightly behind. But yeah, it was just me being a little bit of a nerd, just trying to work out in my head what was actually best, or which of the three tanks was best. Because personally, I didn't like the Chinese version of the 122. I did like the Russian version of the IS, and I'm really enjoying the IS-2 Russian Berlin version. And it's an incredibly consistent tank. Over the 10 or 11 or 12 games I played in this tank last night, I was doing consistently high damage. I was doing consistently well in the tank. It's quite forgiving and it's quite bouncy. The armor is typically IS. So of all three tanks, all new three tanks I played last night that were introduced into the game, this was definitely the most consistent performer. So as I say, this is my first game in the tank. It's just a first impressions. It's not a review. But basically what we have here is the in-game version of the IS. Now you can argue that the engine power isn't quite as good, therefore the horsepower to weight ratio isn't quite as good, but the terrain resistance is much better. And as a result, the two tanks perform very similarly. The guns are identical. It's exactly the same 122mm gun. It's the same penetration for the AP and for the APC-OR and for the HE. It's the same gun depression. It's the same accuracy. It's the same rate of fire. It's identical to the final gun on the in-game IS, and it performs exactly like the final gun on the in-game IS. So really what you're getting here is a premium tank that is almost identical. There's a couple of minor differences, as I say. Slightly higher chance of fire, but not by much, and worse signal range. But other than that, you're getting a fully upgraded tank. Now, usually premium tanks are not as good as a fully upgraded tank of its same tier, but this is as good as the in-game IS. And therefore, it's a very strong premium tank. It doesn't get special matchmaking, none of the new tanks do, but I think this tank is very strong, mainly because it's premium. You get your credit bonus and you get your crew training bonuses, yeah, it's as strong as the IS, but yet it's a premium, and therefore I think it's a very good tank. Now, I've heard a lot of people say it's boring. I agree. This is just a reskin of the in-game IS. You saw a very nice shot on a T-34-3. He came back for more. Standard AP, that's fine for same tiers, even some higher tier tanks if you can get to their sides. But I think that the tank is as strong as the IS. It's a premium, and yes, it is a cut and paste. Now, unfortunately, yeah, you can be critical of wargaming in that situation. I can understand tanks like the Fury. That was a special edition tied into the movie. So the Fury was pretty much similar to the in-game Easy 8. This tank is basically the same tank as the IS, and there's not really a tie-in to anything. But if you can ignore the fact that it's simply a cut and paste job and look at the fact it's a premium tank that is basically as good as a fully upgraded tank in-game, it's a very good tank. So we're capping. I thought this game was going to be over, but the enemy team stopped the cap on 92%, and I'm having major problems penning this KV-3. We finally get a shot in, but I'm over here, in case you haven't noticed. I've been over here on my own. Other than a scout and myself, none of our team came over here. My team are full of red players, and as you can see, most of them charge straight down to the cap. So, yeah, I wasn't feeling it in this game, but it was my first game in the tank, first of the new 3 tanks I played. And 175mm of penetration, not fantastic, especially against an angled KV-3. And I was having major problems trying to figure out just what way this guy was angled. I'm trying to pen the side of his turret or just beside his gun mantlet, but I keep bouncing. But you can see that the accuracy is very good. In fact, every shot I've fired so far has pretty much gone exactly where I aimed it. So I think that the gun is just as good as the IS. I think it's a good gun, but it's just as frustrating sometimes. Sometimes the gun can be incredibly accurate. Sometimes the gun misses every single shot. But you can see we've already bounced 4 shots here. And again, miss a shot. I'm trying to see what way he's angled. So yeah, I'm wasting a lot of ammunition here. I finally switched to premium ammo because I'm getting sick of this KV-3, going for his lower glacis, and another flaming bounce. So I'm down to like 14 rounds of ammo, 2 HE rounds left. This tank does not get a lot of ammo. And another bounce with the premium ammo, and I'm going, what the heck? Yeah, sometimes the gun trolls you, but so do most Russian 122s. But finally I switch back to regular, go for a shot on the side of the turret, finally do some more damage. But as I say, we've bounced 5 shots. I'm working here, my scout is dead, I'm the only one over here, I'm up against a KV-3 and a Churchill 7. And again a shot on the weak spot in the KV-3 and it just bounces. The gun can be incredibly troll. But I'm up against 2 heavy tanks, and now there's an AT-2 that's appeared, but I really don't want to waste shots on this guy because I don't have the accuracy to try and snipe. I probably could go through the front of his tank, but Artie's going to work on the AT-2. I'm kind of waiting for these tanks to advance. I'm the only one here. So I'm just waiting for I know Artie is shooting the AT-2 and the Churchill pins me. So that's the first time I've actually taken damage. Unfortunately, I want to get into third person for this. Yep, don't have to worry about the AT-2. Oh, I'm making a mess of this. I was trying to get my shots in here. Look to see where he penned, and you can see we got it penned right in the shoulder of the tank. But anyway, we finally take out the KV-3. So, yeah, my nemesis is down, and now I can just charge in on this Churchill 7. And again, tier 6 heavy tank and 175mm of penetration on this gun. Bounces. Now you can see that the gun has been very accurate, but you can also see that the armor has been very good. Oh, look at that. Artie is getting involved now, so going for a turret shot. Side of the gun mantlet. Nice high alpha damage, and we're keeping angled, we're staying at an angle, and there we go. A little bit more damage. That little FV is being annoying. But shot on the move, and again we're bouncing. You can see that the armor is very good. In fact, I would probably argue that it's maybe even a little bit better. It's maybe even a little bit better than the IS because of that sloping. But I've lost my gunner, had to use a repair kit, taken a little bit more damage from that RT. I know he was directly in front of me, but I've got a funny feeling he's running for it. We're up to almost 3,000 damage. For some reason our AT-7 is telling me to halt. I don't know why. It would have been nice if he'd been over here helping me, but anyway, yeah, there's that little bugger. He's running for it. And I switched to HE. So let's check out this accuracy. This is a very difficult shot. You can see that the aim time is huge, and yes, we hit his tracks. Only do 200 damage. So I ignore the FV. Time to go and deal with this AT-7 because our IS in the middle has been asking for help. And unfortunately AT-7 sets him on fire. So I've actually run out of AP. I've run out of AP ammo. This tank does not get a lot of ammo, and I missed and wasted so many shots on that KV-3. I think I hit him at least 6 times and they bounced. But we're on premium ammo, so I know I have no problems penning this guy. Comes around the corner, get a nice shot in, miss the track. And you've got a, although you can't see it in the reload or replay, but you get a 10-second reload, just over 10 seconds. So RT is still in play. We're going to aim, we're going to take him out. And there we go, there's kill number 3. That takes me up to 3,600 damage now. Enemy RT went for our RT. The two of them are having an RT duel, and what happens is the FV accidentally drives into the water. So he accidentally drowns himself trying to maneuver around the edge of the map. But yeah, there we go. That was my very first game in the IS-2. So very, very happy to pick up an ace tanker in my very first game in the tank. We also picked up a steel wall. I told you the armor was quite good. In fact, just my opinion of the 12 games I played or so last night, I think the armor might even be better than what I remember of the armor from the IS. I was bouncing tier 9s. I was bouncing T30s in some games. You can side scrape, and that frontal sloping is surprisingly good. We picked up a high caliber as well, and now I did finish top tier. I was playing top tier. You can argue that yes, this was a tier 7 game, I was top tier, but I did have another game I was going to bring it to you, but unfortunately I just don't have time. I've got to make 3 videos today, and recording 6 games for 3 videos in one day, just don't have time. Physically, I mean, it would take so long, I wouldn't have time to do it. But I did almost 4,000 damage in a tier 9 game, shooting mainly tier 8s and tier 9s. Unfortunately, it was a defeat, and I didn't pick up any heroic medals, but tier 7 tank in a tier 9 game, I came second on damage. This tank can perform. It's an IS, and it's a very good IS. It's not worse than the in-game IS at all, but it is better than the Chinese version of the IS-2, so it's even better than a fully upgraded version of one of the in-game tier 7 heavy tanks. But yeah, 1454 XP, really happy with that. Nearly 3,600 damage, 3 kills. Can't complain. I think it's a very consistent tank. 24 shots fired, 21 hits. So the accuracy was good in that game. However, I have played games where I couldn't hit the side of a barn door. It's typically Russian accuracy. Sometimes, some games, you cannot hit whatever you are aiming at. I did play a couple of games where I was fully aimed at targets, probably about 400 meters away, and the shot didn't even reach the target. So yes, it's typical Russian accuracy. Sometimes you can snipe cupolas from 400 meters, and sometimes the shot won't even reach the target. I only penned 11 of 21 hits. Now, that's the 175 millimeters. Now, I did come up against a KV-3. Most of those bounces were against the KV-3. Couldn't figure out what way he was angled. A lot of my shots could not pen his weak spots, but that's just what you got to get used to when you're playing the 175 millimeters on a 122 millimeter Russian gun. You've got to work around that. You don't get a lot of ammunition, and you really can't spam shots. I was running out of ammunition towards the end of the game there. If my team had been a little bit worse, it's possible I would have run out of ammunition had there been more enemy tanks left at the end. But as I say, the damage, the alpha on the gun, 390 alpha damage, you can get some very high rolls. So even though I only hit 11, I did 3,600 damage, so it's a good gun. We spotted 1, damaged 5, destroyed 3, did 500 assistance damage, and ended up doing 14 base cap points, 22 base defense points at the end there, and it's a premium tank, so you're going to be earning money. You're going to be earning a lot of money. Now, for some reason, this is 0. I may have ammo. I may have ammo in my depot. I didn't actually have to pay anything for ammo here. So it's possible I've got a bunch of ammo that's been left over from when I originally drove the IS. I think that may be what happened. I bought ammo for the IS, sold the tank, never sold the ammo. But regardless, we've got 91,000 credits for that game. So I think it's a good money maker. However, the premium ammo, if you are firing a lot of premium ammo, it's going to cut into your profit margins by quite a bit. The premium ammo is not that cheap on the tank, but yeah, it was a good game. 2,181 XP on a ×2, first game ever in the tank, and as you can see, you get your bonus for the premium vehicle tier here as well. So we finished up on 5k damage. Not only that, but because of a special that's going on, if you buy these tanks, for example, there's a special where you get 5 times XP. 5 times XP. After you get your double in the tank, the next games you play in the tank, I think it's the next 10 games you play, if you get a win and you're in the top 10, it gives you 5 times XP. So your crews level up very quickly in this. I forgot to mention the IS-2 crew. It comes with a 100% crew that already have brothers in arms. So I've been playing it with the crew that came with the tank. I didn't put a new crew in here. I could have, but I was playing these games without any skills other than brothers in arms, without 6th sense. So all review few tanks today are played with the crews that came with the tank. So they're 100%, but pretty poor other than that. So my first impressions of the IS-2. It's another one in a long line of very good Russian premium heavy tanks. You've got the Churchill 3, you've got the KV-220, you've got the IS-6, you've got the KV-5. I'm probably missing one or two in there, but Russian premium heavy tanks are all pretty good, and the IS-2 fits right in there because it's another heavy tank that's pretty good. It has the same crew layout as an IS-6, so if you're training up IS crews, it fits in perfectly. Now, that brings an interesting question, because which would be better to buy, an IS-6 or an IS-2? And personally, if you can afford it, I would probably buy an IS-6. It's a tier 8 premium, so this tank will earn money, but the IS-6 will earn more. It's a tier 8 premium. Also, the IS-6 gets special matchmaking, so it might not be available that much longer. I have no idea how long this tank is going to be available in the gift shop. It may just be a special and may disappear and only appear on rare occasions in the future. So in that situation, if you're a tank collector, you're probably going to want to pick this up now. But if you're on the fence about buying an IS-2 or an IS-6 right at this moment in time, and you can afford to buy an IS-6, I would probably say, even though this tank is very consistent, very new player friendly, it forgives mistakes, the IS-6 does as well. I think that if you're on the fence but can afford an IS-6, the IS-6 would probably still be better in the long run. But if you buy the IS-2, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I mean, the only disappointing thing about this tank is that it's so similar to the in-game IS. It's basically, as I say, if you want to be cynical, you can just say it's a cut and paste. Wargaming are basically printing money. Take a tank that's already in-game, give it a reskin, and then charge 50 euros for it, or whatever it happens to be. Yeah, you can be cynical like that, but as I say, it's not quite a reskin. It does have a small difference here, and as I say, as a premium tank that performs as well as any in-game fully upgraded tank of the same tier, that's a very good tank. It goes against Wargaming's philosophy of bringing out a tank that's not quite as good as a fully upgraded tank and better than a stock tank of the same tier. I think this is in every way as good as the in-game IS, with a couple of very minor differences, and it's even got a couple of improvements over the in-game IS, but we're going to cover that when it's time for the review. The IS-2, of the 3 tanks I played last night, this is definitely the most consistent performer. It's a great tank. I'm surprised. As I say, I went and started playing this tank being very cynical, but over the 12 games or so I played in the tank, it was very consistent, usually pretty high damage, good money making, good crew training, and yeah, I'm surprised to say it, but I can pretty much recommend this tank. I know it's probably the least exciting of the 3 tanks that have been released for the Berlin Trio, but it's also, in my opinion, the most consistent performer, and it's the one tank that's been released that's probably most friendly to an average to below average player, or a new or inexperienced player to the game. So I'll be reviewing the tank properly in the coming months, but that's just my first impressions. I like the IS-2. I think it's worth whatever Wargaming are asking for it. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later for the Cromwell B first impressions.